Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq right now. It looks like the air campaign entered a new phase, Peter. They're now going after these ISIL or ISIS people that have taken this dam, which apparently is a very strategic dam, as it were. I mean, if it breaks, it floods all of Iraq, including Baghdad. It's a power source and all of that.
It's hugely consequential. I mean, we've seen reports that as much as a 60-foot wall of water would be released if the dam were suddenly burst, and that's obviously a strategic threat to the Iraqi government and to, in fact, our own people in Baghdad, which would be one of the reasons why the Obama administration would justify attacks. What you see this week, really significant, is the departure of Maliki, the prime minister. He finally agreed to step down after 8 years of often very sectarian rule, alienating the Sunni population. The hope that the Obama administration has is that his successor, his anointed successor, also a Shiite from the same party, but will be a more responsive and more inclusive figure. They're much more willing to get in bed with him to empower him against ISIS or ISIL than they were with Maliki. So now there's a freedom now to be a little bit more engaged than they had felt before.
Michael, that leads me, of course, to Hillary Clinton and her sort of split with the president this week. As you heard me earlier, I think she had a point. Most of the attention was about the little zinger when she said, you know, don't do stupid stuff is not what she called an organizing principle. But as you read that interview in The Atlantic, she really kind of outlined her views, her overall views on foreign policy, including we must have a strategy to deal with these jihadist terrorists.
Yeah, with a very serious interlocutor, Jeff Goldberg, who's very good at this. She was making an argument, not just what we saw, reported. This was that America has not been sufficiently engaged, particularly in Syria, as ISIS rose in eastern Syria, then after the fall of Fallujah, then now with Mosul, that the United States needs an overall strategy, not just a series of reactions to events. But how do you get on the offensive and start to build alliances and contain and then destroy this safe haven? She was making that case. She was raising again the issue. Remember the 3 a.m. call the last time when she ran about against Barack Obama? Who do you trust at 3 a.m.? I think she was kind of asserting, well, you should trust her, and maybe that was superior to the president she served, and it's true.
You know, yeah, Jerry. As Michael was pointing out to me, Barack Obama got the nomination, and she lost it because he ran at her from the left. And now some of her supporters are saying she better be careful because people on her left within the Democratic Party might rise up and pose a threat if she does run for president.
But on the other hand, I think the fact that she gave that interview and that she was so tough in it maybe says that she doesn't think there's a plausible threat on the left coming in 2016 the way there was in 2008, and it's safe to move out. Now, I just was going to add, though, I think there's an important point of context for what she said about Syria, which is that I think we're at an inflection point on ISIS or ISIL, depending on what you want to call it, which is, I think this is the time in which people are realizing this is not just a passing threat. This is not just another terrorist organization. This is an organization that is both terrorist in nature, but has a military that's capable of taking and holding territory and that has much broader aims, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And I think she was speaking into that context.
We just heard Mike Rogers say that he thinks there is a greater threat, terrorists pose a greater threat to America right now than they did before 9/11.
Exactly, and his message is the one you hear from others in the intelligence community and elsewhere, which is be very afraid. In fact, be more afraid than you should have been before 9/11 because of the competition between various terrorist groups to show their force and their capacity to inflict damage on the infidels, also known as us. And which I think is a reason why, just to bring back to politics for a moment, that Hillary Clinton is in a different situation in a potential 2016 run than she was in 2008, because there is not the revulsion now of against being involved in overseas, where people look at this threat and begin to understand this threat. I think this was a good week for what passes for a good week for the administration in Iraq for the reasons that Peter says. We hopefully dealt with the humanitarian crisis of the Yazidis and finally got rid of Maliki. Whether the successor is capable of rising to the occasion remains to be seen. But the fundamental question that Hillary Clinton raised but didn't answer, which is how we are going to deal with this looming, continuing, expanding threat from ISIS, is going to be the central question, I think, that's going to dominate the rest of President Clinton's term and should be the central question of the 2016 campaign.
The biggest tension and division in our politics right now is between the scale of the threat and the scale of the response, which doesn't seem anywhere near the scale of the threat described by the Secretary of Defense, described by the Attorney General. The real question is whether Barack Obama can make the mental transition from the ender of wars, which is the way he ran and won for President of the United States, to be the sworn enemy of ISIS, building a complex regional alliance to contain and destroy this threat. We've got 2.5 years of this administration. Is that his intention? We don't really know.
We have to end it there. To be continued, obviously, and we'll be back in a minute.